Ready? You cannot be serious with Pat Barry and friends. Wherever you are, we're here.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of You Cannot Be Serious on LairMedia.tv. Info@LairMedia.tv is our email, the usual, and you can get all our programs up on the YouTube channel. Now, we're expecting some more people to come in, but anyway, they'll probably pop in during the program, and they're more than welcome. On tonight's panel, good evening, Mary, how are you?
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, Chris, how are you?
Good evening, folks. Yeah, good today.
Good evening, Stephen Collins, how are you?
Good evening, how are you doing?
That's the old bog road behind you, is it, from the song?
That's Thomond Park, you cheeky bugger.
Move there to the left for a second, Stephen, so we can see the beautiful Munster sign. Up,
Oh,
Munster.
Hey.
And good evening, Paraig, Londra, and welcome.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Mary. Hi, lads.
Now, before we get into the meat of the program, I sit around. Anybody around the table can join in this. I think it should be marked because he had such a long career. He was a prolific arranger, creator, and all his theme music is so distinctive. I'm talking, of course, of Ennio Morricone, who passed away today at 91. He didn't speak English, he only spoke Italian. And one of the music people involved in Lyric FM was at one of his concerts in, I think it was National Concert Hall, and he was to do a little slot on it, if you know what I mean. So Ennio would vet everybody before they ever went on stage, and he was trying to find out, number one, had they knowledge of the music, and number two, they knew what they were talking about. He was telling the story today on the radio. But I came across him first, I'm sure all of you did, in those spaghetti westerns with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and for a few dollars more, hang 'em high.
Fistful of dollars.
Yeah, they're just fantastic, lads.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant films. And the music, very atmospheric altogether.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think they're probably the best known. They're probably the best known westerns.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. Especially the not just the westerns themselves, but the music.
Yeah.
Probably the best known theme tunes.
And of course, what's his name? I forget the director now, but Eastwood himself, they had the idea for these westerns, and they couldn't really get made in Hollywood. But
Sergio Leone.
Sergio Leone.
I couldn't think of the surname.
But weren't they were genius. They're ages. You could watch them again. They're timeless. You know?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Totally.
Were you a fan of those spaghetti westerns?
Oh, they were brilliant. Oh, they were brilliant. Especially when they were, you could see that dubbing was desperate, but they still, it was good. I mean, you kind of, it reminds you of one of those kind of Japanese kind of TV shows where the dubbing is just like in a different time zone. But yeah, look, it was what it was at the time. They went over there because it was cheaper to make. And it gave, I mean, I think it was in the 60s. I mean, I think Eastwood came from one of the TV shows. Rawhide, yeah. And he was becoming big. And to do that kind of blockbuster stuff was, I think America was still in the grips of the kind of the war films. And they were doing like some, kind of like some romantic comedy kind of things with Doris Day and stuff like that. So they wanted to have a different kind of image, and they weren't getting much joy from the studios. And they probably felt that Leone probably thought, lads, there's a cheaper way we can do it, and they gave a lot of employment in Italy and Spanish where it was made, in Spain where it was made. And I thought, I mean, the music, I mean, when I heard he had died, the first thing I thought was the good, the bad, the ugly, straight away.
Oh.
Right? I think everyone thought that, you know what I mean? And then, even the kids today, like, you play the song to your young lad, and he goes, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was like 91 or 93 when he passed away today.
91.
And I mean, even the 15, 16 year olds today have heard his music.
Yeah,
so I mean, yeah. So he'll be remembered. Long.
Yeah. He scored the mission as well, of course.
Yeah.
film mission with our own Ray McNally in it, the mission.
I mean, he was in Dublin recently. I'm up to about 2 or 3 years ago doing concerts. You know, he was.
I think he was in
at the time.
Dublin early last year.
Maybe he was. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
He's
so,
always
I'm
in Dublin
sure.
doing concerts.
He loved coming to Ireland.
Yeah.
But the Italians and Irish always got on together, fellow Celts. And before we get into the programme, the controversy that's on all day and over the weekend about the new Minister for Agriculture and his drink driving charge, it's been aired all day today, and I suppose on every station you turned on. I think myself there's overkill on it now by now. We don't want to really add to it, but I think it'd be remiss of us not commenting on it because drink driving is a serious matter. And if you're caught drink driving, you're caught breaking the law. I don't know, what about his license he had?
Visual license, yeah.
Drive the car, but whatever that may be, I don't know. But I mean, of course he went on television yesterday apparently and apologised. But I don't know myself.
I think, Pat, the biggest thing about this is how Micheál Martin did not know.
Well, he said he didn't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He said he didn't know. So I can only have to take his word for it. But what if he says he didn't know, then that's the biggest miss kind of understanding of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
While Barry Cowan has been sentenced, now leniently, so be it. He has served whatever he has served, right? I know there's an awful lot of people coming out saying, well, you know, they've been victims of drink driving, and you know what? That's fair. I'm not even going to dispute that, right?
No.
But what's happening here nowadays is again, a retrial of people's crimes depending on who they are.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And what happens is that if the sentence didn't fit one person's narrative, then let's retry, and that sounds a little bit like Judge Roy Bean to me.
Yeah.
It's it's persecutory.
Now,
really.
what people are looking for is they're looking for him to be sacked. That's
fired.
exactly what they're looking for. They don't care. I mean, it probably was 4 years ago. It probably was reported in the paper. I don't know. The biggest scandal apart from that is two things. Is obviously Micheál Martin says he didn't know. You got to take the man at his word. I have my doubts. The second thing is, what the hell was Barry Cowan doing driving on a learner's provisional license at his age?
Yeah.
He probably didn't start learning to drive until very late.
I thought that doesn't cut any ice with me.
My godmother didn't learn to drive until she was well in her 50s.
Yeah, but that family is, his father was a TD, his brother's a TD, he's a TD. They've been travelling by highways and
But he's probably like Willie O'D doesn't drive. Willie O'D has a driver bringing him everywhere.
I don't mind him. What do you think, Stephen, of the thing? Should he keep his ministerial job?
I don't know about losing his job, but I mean, he was given a 3-month sentence.
Yeah.
If you're caught drink driving, it's an automatic 2-year ban.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he banned for 2 years?
Absolutely.
Why was he given a 3-month sentence?
So
I think
it doesn't matter how over the limit you are. It's an automatic 2-year ban.
It's the judicial system, right? It's the judicial system which is the problem here, right?
Yeah.
Why did the judge give him 3 months when it's a year or 2 years, right? Simple as that, okay? We can't go and retry Barry Cowan. It's as simple as that. People want to do that. That's wrong. 2 wrongs don't make a right. He's already been sentenced.
That would be very unfair.
Oh.
You can't do
Well,
it.
I'm not saying he should resign, Chris. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that he should have got the same sentence that everybody else got.
Totally
But
agree.
not everyone has, and I have experience of it. People getting away, and in the end, benefiting more from drink driving than the people that were involved. You know, that were the victims of that person who was drink driving, and getting a suspended.
But as resigning from his ministership or whatever, no, I don't think he should be forced to resign.
Yeah, Paraig, what do you think? Has he done the time? And
Another side of it then as well, there was someone on today on the radio, I was listening to it, about the people that are knocked down and killed, you know, when someone does that, you know. Now, I had a situation myself in my own life where I was caught drink driving and I was put off for 2 years, but I appealed after a year and I got my license back.
Oh, were you? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, fair, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there should be just one rule, and it should be straight across the board.
Yeah.
If you're caught
I think that's what's annoying, Chris.
so
I think
much,
that's what's annoying people.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The
Well,
fact that he didn't
see,
get that sentence.
the thing is, right, and you know, Padraig didn't have to tell us that, right?
No.
He could have, Padraig didn't have to tell us that he volunteered. But you know what? People probably listening to this and thinking, right, what does Padraig do for a living, right? If he went for a job in like the public service and someone found out, let's hammer Padraig. Why? Because he didn't get the 2 sentences, or he appealed it, right? He didn't see out his time. People are just polarized now. I mean,
They are.
One of the big, and I know it's probably a little bit going a bit about, but I think it's important to mention about what about when there's trials in the media. Okay, I mean, I think, and this is not because it's rugby or anything. I think the lads in Belfast, right, who were found not guilty, which was the official sentence as far as I know, they were basically, and there's no other way to say it as far as I'm concerned, they were basically hounded out of Ireland for what happened. Okay? Hounded out of Ireland. Now, that to me, I think, I mean, if it happened, anything like that could easily happen to any one of us, right? Now, if it happened to me, I probably would have lost my job if it was me driving, okay? And I think to be actually, and that goes back to the bad days when something happened and an organization would tell you, right, you're leaving Ireland now. I mean, that's what it was like. It was an absolute media frenzy. And they even, not only did they not allow these lads to work in Ireland again, they couldn't get employment in some places in France or UK because pressure was applied. Now,
Right.
in the eyes of the law, they did not do anything against it. And I just feel that that kind of frenzy is absolutely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the laws on rape is are different. We must point out that the trial that Chris is referring to happened in the UK, Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK for the time being. They have different laws on rape than we have down here in.
Okay, but the point of the matter is that because of the sentence or the fact that the decision that was taken by the judge at the time, right? They were basically, whether it was North or South, the RFU, right, they've lost their contacts with RFU.
And that was appalling. That was simply unconscionable.
A Southern Irish organization, right? Based in Dublin. It could be All Ireland. It's in All Ireland. I understand that. But a decision was taken by their employer based in Dublin that these guys had to go.
And they were found innocent by a court of law, that we all go into a court of law and stand against our peers, and we have to accept the result that they have heard for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and lawyers and judges listening to testimony after testimony after testimony. And at the end of the day, these are 3 human beings. Forget about whether they are earning money, forget about whether they're rugby players, forget about anything. They deserved the right to the same anonymity as the person who accused them, who continues to remain the anonymity. Now they are going to be, they were tried in a court of social media before they ever got into court, and that should never have happened. People like me, people like you, do not know the full ramifications of the case. Only the people inside in the court case have heard it from weeks on end, day in, day out. And they, what happens when they're found innocent? If they were found guilty, it would be different. Then they should be named.
At the end of the day, sorry for question, Mary, we'll get on to the meeting. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the verdict was. The public had their mind made up already before any.
But this is it.
Was given to the verdict, which is.
But where do you draw the line, Pat? Where are people going to draw the line here, right? I mean, hang on a second now. This just teases out for 1 second. I know you've got an agenda, but this just teases out.
No problem.
Okay, well, I think the mistake that Barry Cowan did here, right, was that, well, he made a couple of mistakes, right, apart from the drink driving. Apart from that, the first thing he really should have done was, right, he should have went up to Micheál Martin and said, look, this is going to happen, right? He should have put that up. He didn't. Now, I just find it hard to believe that Micheál Martin did not know. For a man of his, I mean, who has his, you know, his spies in the corner, he had to have known. I mean, this idea is, this is the first I heard of it. Come on, please, don't insult our intelligence.
But can I just say,
that's what it looks like to me.
Can I just say, there's an advert on television, and you know, I mean, death by drink driving is very close to me personally. I have personal family experience of it, of a relative being killed because of a driver being drunk, and many of my relatives almost killed in the same accident. But you know, at some stage you have to say, when a result has come out and the judge has made a decision and blah blah blah, whether you like the result or not, isn't it gorgeous? When you like, if you like the result or not, somebody has made a decision has been made. Now there's a series of ads on TV for death by drink driving, and yes, it's appalling, and yes, it must be heartbreaking for a parent of any child who has been killed in a car accident. But to make an advert of that parent absolutely emotionally distraught, which you would accept that she would be, but you know that the case has happened many years ago or a few years ago, and the person who has caused that is living with that death for the rest of their life. They've probably served a prison sentence, and day in and day out, when they look at the ad, they're reminded constantly of the one huge mistake that they have made in their life, and that they probably are just eaten up inside for that mistake. At some stage, a person should be, you know, you should be able to say, you know, we have to learn from the mistakes. I've never drank in my life. I've never taken alcohol. I'm always the designated driver. But at some stage, a person has to be there. You know, you can't always live and be reminded of your sins, or your errors, or your misdemeanors. Sometimes, you know, I mean, looking at Barry Cowan's.
Yeah, but as against that, he's a public figure. Okay,
yeah.
It's his responsibility to obey the rules, like
he should
everybody
never
else.
Have been given that position.
No. Hold on 1 second. No, hold on 1 second. No, 1 second. No. He was caught drink driving. He got prosecuted and he got sentenced to 3 months. Okay. Now, it's got nothing to do with his ministerial job. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But he should have got more.
He should have.
He should have got what everybody else in the country would get for drink driving.
Okay.
Regardless of his job.
Stephen, not disputing that one bit. But who was the person that gave the sentence to him?
Yeah.
The judge.
Why
investigate him.
Why did the judge give him 3 months?
Investigate the judge.
And why didn't he get? Why did he get the job he got?
Let me tell you.
No. Nothing to do with his job.
Who? Barry Cowan. Barry Cowan. Barry Cowan shouldn't have got the job.
Cowan's job. Nothing to do with
Cowan.
Why should he not?
Well, he's not.
I don't think he should have got.
What do you mean he's not? Hang on. What do you mean he's not suited?
It's a ministerial position.
Right. Hang on a second now.
It's a ministerial position.
Right. Hang on. Go back over the last 50 years at least, right? And think of the amount of people who have been in ministerialships that are not suited to that position.
You're dead right. Even the last
right. Hang on a second now. There's been a lot of people who have been prime ministers or Taoiseach and shouldn't be and not fit for that position, right? So hang on a second now, right? I'm getting a bit peeved when I hear this now, and I'm going to get this out quickly, right? The only reason this is coming up now is because Barry Cowan has been given a ministerial position, right? Mm-hmm. If people had I'm surprised this never came out 4 years ago. If people had a problem with his sentence, they should have brought it up then.
Yeah,
now we want to retry the man, right? We want to retry. Right. So if we can't retry him, let's cost him his job. Right? This cost him his job. Right? That's what they want. That's what people want. Okay? This cost him a job. Right? So the problem you have here, Pat, is this, right?
Yeah.
And here's, you know very well, because in this town years ago, I won't mention the name, but there was a particular judge on the circuit. Right?
Yeah.
All you had to do was turn up. And if you were caught in the Clare region for speeding, and you lived in Cork, Portlaoise, Galway, and you turned up, and that particular judge, he's not around anymore, that particular judge, if he says, where'd you come from? I came from Portlaoise. Did you come all the way to Portlaoise today? He says, yeah. Did you take a day off work? I did. Case dismissed.
Yeah, but I don't agree that he should be, I don't agree he should lose his job.
No, he won't.
But I don't think he should have been, I can't believe that it wasn't known. And that
that's my point.
Known what he,
that's my point. I can't believe he wasn't known. I can't believe it wasn't known.
Can't believe it wasn't known. He's got the job now. He should be left to do the job.
Tomorrow he's going making a state. He's going
he
making
shouldn't have
a
been put in that
statement.
position in the first place.
Tomorrow he's going making an official statement on behalf, as he is a minister, as he is wont to do in Dáil Éireann. That's our Dáil chamber, our government chamber.
I'm going to apologise, Pat. That's what he's going to do.
Under the spotlight tomorrow, and he's forced to make a statement as well, which is Roderick O'Gorman, who's the Minister for Children.
Yeah.
He's under tremendous pressure to make a statement to the Dáil about his association with certain people. And some tweets, he thinks, it's all over social media. I'm not going to read out any of them. You can read them for yourselves.
Yeah.
But to me, there is no doubt in my mind, if there was ever a person who is not suitable for a ministership for children, he is definitely top of the list, in my opinion. And if the Green Party and the other two other parties stand over disappointment, then I'm afraid we'll close the book on the government till they decide to go to the country.
On the other hand, Pat, can you judge a person because they stood in a photograph with somebody else? From the photograph that I've seen, it looks like he was actually...
It wasn't one event.
From the one photograph I've seen, it looks like he was posing with a woman beside him, and the person
Peter Tatchell
stood behind him.
That's his name.
And
Peter Tatchell, yeah.
And Tatchell's views don't necessarily reflect Roderick O'Gorman's views, no more than your views reflect LearMedia.tv's views.
They're our own personal
and
views.
they certainly don't reflect my views.
I'm not making a judgment I don't really give I don't care one iota who he hangs around with. But to be a minister in a government of Ireland, it's not on to keep company like that. And
you're right, Pat. And the thing about it is, Minister for Children too.
That's the problem. There is the problem. It couldn't have been a worse appointment.
He didn't meet him once. He was with him at least 4 times.
Right? See, I only saw one photograph, and the one photograph. But in his government capacity, he saw these people, and sometimes you have to actually talk to people who you absolutely detest because they are, or whose views you detest because they are representing.
They're not detestable views. They're views of a person who advocates.
Well, they are pretty detestable views, Pat.
Between a child and an adult, which is.
They are pretty despicable views. They are absolutely despicable views. But
they're not views at all. They're a sickness.
He should have distanced himself from Tatchell. He certainly should have distanced himself. And he certainly shouldn't have been given that role.
We needed proof that the Green Party is only interested in power because nothing from the leader or deputy leader of the Green Party up to now.
You can't expect anything from that. You can't expect anything from Eamon Ryan. He's not going to rock the boat.
No.
No, I think, Pat, the problem. Look, I mean, my view on this was that, and this is, people probably think we're contradicting ourselves here on this one. That Roderick O'Connor, what's his name?
Roderick O'Gorman.
O'Gorman, right? You know, he technically has done nothing wrong.
No.
But the problem here is down to suitability, right? While, you know, there's a big difference from a man making a mistake and being sentenced and his hand up, you know, belatedly, than someone who is being 4 times at conferences with this particular The word individual is actually very hard to say, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, to come up with those views, to be honest with you, people who think that way,
I
act
find
that
it very
way.
strange that
They act
to
that
have
way.
those views.
They act that. I mean, my opinion is people who don't normally have views like that normally act that way, and that's the way I feel. And I mean, the situation we have here is this: is that, you know, this is where good journalism comes out, because this is the type of people we need weeded out of government, not the likes of Barry Cowan who made a mistake. That's the big difference.
And okie dokie, we leave it there. So,
but before we go on the previous point, Pat, you never asked me about Ennio Morricone. You just breezed past me as if I didn't even have an opinion. And my favorite piece of music by Ennio Morricone was Gabriel Zobo.
Yeah.
All right, breeze away now, Pat. Breeze away quickly.
That wasn't written by Ennio Morricone, was it?
It was.
Be serious is this program. We're going to get on to nuts, and
Pat.
Everyone's a fruit.
You cannot be serious with Pat Barry and friends. Wherever you are, we're here.
I feel like Rachel and Friends, or what's the other fella? Joey and Friends and Friends.
Yeah.
Nuts, hazelnuts, peanuts, chocolate-covered nuts, chili nuts, roasted peanuts. There's a myriad of nuts. It's all very simple. I was looking at the picture. It was all very simple when I was growing up. There was only one. There was just your little packet of KP peanuts in the blue packet. There was no contradiction. There was no mix-ups. That was it. Your packet of KP peanuts. But today, you don't know. If you asked for a packet of peanuts, they wouldn't give you out a packet of nuts. You'd have to specify. It's like going for a coffee now. They name out about 14 different types of coffee, and in the end, you'll just opt for a mug of tea instead. You're so confused. But I'm just talking about nuts, Mary. What would your favorite nuts be? And you can say whatever you like about them.
Oh, I'm not really a nut eater at all. I was a potato. But if I was eating any nuts, they'd be the salted peanuts. Is it salted peanuts? They're the bigger type of nuts. They're not the ones that you get inside in in a bar up at the bar. They're not those ones, but they'd be crunchier. I like the crunchy salted peanuts. I think they are. Or they used to have these nuts as well before, and I hate chocolate, but these chocolate covered nuts were kind of nice, and sometimes you could get great what would you call it, little fruit inside in the nut as well. But
so you're for the salted peanuts. Just before anyone else comes in, there's a piece of jazz music written by Dizzy Gillespie, and the title of it is Salted Peanuts. You can adapt that as your piece of music. Chris, what are you a nut person?
People think I'm nuts anyway, so what's the difference?
Yeah, we're all there.
You know, but you know what I actually like is when you go to these Christmas markets abroad, and you get the nuts in the caramelized, you know, they're covered with sugar, right? And you get them. I can't remember the name offhand at the moment, but they used to get a bag like in a cone shape, and you could just, I mean, they'd be nice and crunchy, you know, so you can actually see them being done in a kind of like a wok, and it'd be all caramelized, and it'd be just, you know, with the sugar and all that, fused. Right. And then you see, you know, the horse chestnuts being done as well. That's a different type of nut, you know. But I mean, I wouldn't be a big nut person myself. But I like you know, especially like at Christmas time, you buy 1 or 2 bags just to have or whatever. But they can be nice. Yeah,
and Paraig, are you nuts as well? Or
I'm mad into nuts. Love nuts. I'm actually considering now going over to the shop after this program. I love the salted ones. I love the roasted peanuts as well, you know, and the chocolate ones.
Yeah,
I go for any of them. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And Stephen, are you nuts? Are you nuts?
Yeah, totally. Stone mad altogether. But I like the chocolate covered Brazil nuts.
Oh yeah,
wow.
Pistachio. especially if you crunch them up, put them into ice cream. They're beautiful. Pistachio nuts. They're lovely and salty.
And they are getting more expensive. I know that, you know, because I noticed 3 old pennies for the packet of smart little peanut.
But they're supposed to be very good for you as well, though.
Hang on a second. 3 old what?
Yeah.
Pennies.
Was that what currency? What century was that currency in, Pat?
It was 16th century, I think, didn't it?
16th century, was it? I thought that was the bartering system. What did you use to give your nuts for, Pat?
No, I was in the film Back to the Future.
The Dark Ages.
But there's peanut butter as well. Peanut butter, I think, gives people, I think, a taste for nuts. Because I don't think you'd eat peanut butter if you didn't like nuts.
Don't like that.
I've never eaten peanut butter.
No,
I love peanut butter.
I've never tasted it. It doesn't appeal to me because of its texture and the color of it.
Yeah.
I don't eat white food.
The home of peanut butter is America, of course. Do you like peanut butter, Stephen?
I've only had it once or twice. I wouldn't go out and buy it because I prefer the nuts in my hand rather than peanut butter. So
you prefer the nuts in your hand, do you?
We prefer our nuts in our hand.
My eyes begin to water that.
You walked into that there now.
Edit that out.
So, Stephen got his nuts in his hand, Paraig.
But it was a joke there, Pat. I'm trying to think of it about this old woman who she used to give the bus driver nuts every day, like, you know. And one day he said to her, "Geez, you're great, like, you know, give me all these nuts." Well, I don't like. I just like the chocolate on them.
and then she had no teeth, is it? Anyway,
suck it up.
Suck it up.
We leave the nuts there, lads. You cannot be serious as the program and on lyricmedia.tv.
You cannot be serious with Pat Barry and friends. Wherever you are, we're here.
Now, I was reading over the weekend bits and pieces. I was visiting my dad, but I had time to read because he's asleep most of the time in my company. So,
don't blame him, Pat. Don't blame him one bit.
That's because of his age.
Welcome to our world.
I'd like to meet that man one day. I bet he'd be wide awake in everybody else's company.
That's why you're sharp tonight. And I was reading a bit about Robert Emmet and the famous speech from the doc and all of that, and Sarah Curran, his love, all that. And it got me thinking about blood sacrifice. A lot of these people were believers in blood or sacrifice of some sort. And it got me thinking about blood sacrifice. It sounds worse than what it is. And giving up your life, really, you know that you're starting out on a journey that is almost certain going to end in your own death. And the people of 1916 are the nearest ones we're thinking of, like Paraig Pearce and I said Robert Emmet and Kevin Barry as well, who absolutely, if you have never read the story of Kevin Barry, the student from Belvedere College who was hanged at 18 and a half, you should read his story if you want to know about sacrifice and dignity and all of that. That's only my opinion anyway. But it got me thinking about blood sacrifice, how it began, and do we think that it's a noble thing? It's a noble ideal. I'm not saying we should all go and kill ourselves, but do you think it's a noble ideal? Mary, what do you think?
I'm torn. I absolutely applaud the courage and tenacity and bravery of people like Kevin Barry and Paraig Pearce and Robert Emmet, and people who gave their lives for an ideal, gave their lives for a freedom that we handed away once it was gained. It was almost like we couldn't cope with being independent. We couldn't cope with managing our own country, so we handed ourselves over to a completely different colonizer, one that was no longer English, but was one of a global Europe, which, you know, back again, I know Chris is very much for Europe and that, but I just think, is there anyone in our government right now, not that you'd want anybody to sacrifice their lives because it's fruitless, But is there anybody that you could look at in the government now, or any government anywhere in the world, that you would say that they are so idealistic that they would lay down their lives for their country and their countrymen, and do it like some of them did, the night after or the morning after they were married, or did it, you know what I mean? They had whole lives ahead of them, and they saw the love of this land ahead of all other things, and they died for that. And you say to yourself, in one hand, it's just completely admirable and completely wonderful. In another side, you say to yourself, what did they die for? What did they die for?
Yeah, Paraig, what do you think about this idea? Is it something that you admire in people from history?
More as what Mary was saying there, like, you know, is there anyone nowadays that would do that? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. That's a massive thing to do, like, you know. But did they have a choice that time, Mary? That's what I wonder.
My granduncle died with the tricolour over, that's the Irish flag, over his grave and over his coffin. He was buried with it. And he was a member of what I'd like to say the old IRA. He was a member of the IRA during 1916. And his brother was in the British Army. And neither brother spoke to each other to the day they died. Now, both were born in Liverpool. And that's why we've been Liverpool fans all our lives in the family. But both of them died without ever speaking to each other because of one's passion for England and the other's passion for Ireland. Okay. You say to yourself, completely admirable on one level, but on the other level, what for? What did they, you know, two countries, people give their lives for or people fight for the country that they were brought up in, or the country that they're proud to belong to. And what's it all for? You know, to hand it over then.
Same with armies, isn't it?
Pardon?
Same with armies, you know. That they go out and they're giving their life really, aren't they?
You know, I've seen it on both sides. I have family on both sides who were very, very nationalist, very Irish, and then other family members who were in the British Army. So I'm able to see both sides. And you just think, like, what for? Because isn't it Robert Emmet's epitaph, let no man write my epitaph, and until our country is free. Is it free? Are we independent? Can we have autonomy? Can we do what we want to do?
And he said, "Stone." Stephen, all about you think that it was a noble time. It was of its time, I suppose. Blood sacrifice going back in the end, going back in time.
Of its time, it was admirable. I mean, totally and utterly admirable, and not only that, but selfless as well. Because the people, especially in Ireland, my grandfather, he fought in the War of Independence. He was in an IRA active service unit. My mother's uncle was beaten to death by the Black and Tans. So, yeah, and I mean, definitely I think it was selfless. Definitely I think it's something to admire. And I don't see anybody today with that commitment anywhere in the world at the moment. I really don't. We say the likes of Che Guevara, the likes of Nelson Mandela. I don't think they exist anymore. I really don't.
You mean they were of a time and history?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
It's a totally different society now. Totally different.
What about you, Chris? Do you think that it was a noble thing to do, I suppose, particularly when they went into situations with their eyes wide open?
I think anybody who is sent to war by politicians, knowing that they may never come back, is basically taking the life in their hands. The fact of the matter is that you know, I think they knew when they were going out that they were not going to win. I think the only reason that we do have our independence right now, in my opinion, no, I wasn't at the time, but doing my reading, was the manner of the executions.
Yeah.
That the manner of the executions turned public opinion against it. They were probably seen as being romantic fools.
Yeah.
Pierce in particular. I think there was one or two of them that were probably of militaristic mind. I think Collins was definitely militaristic minded, and I think he knew that he was going to, that the old the old line was that he was signed his own death warrant in the 6th of December 1921. He knew himself,
What he's saying.
the signing of the document between the British and Irish in the 6th of December 1921 that gave Ireland the 26 counties. He signed that agreement with Arthur Griffith. Arthur Griffith died lately, weeks later. Arthur Griffith died at 50 years of age a few weeks later from a heart attack.
Well, he was an awful loss. Arthur Griffith was an awful loss. A bigger loss than people ever realized.
But he knew himself. I mean, there was documented that Collins said that he had signed his own death warrant that day.
Yeah.
He did. That's just documented that he said that. But I think the problem that you have is this: is that as I said, when I was looking at the question that you posed today, I mean, I was thinking, what is he on about here? Is he on about like people like giving up self-sacrifice, like in blood?
I didn't know what he was on about.
And it was completely different to what I think this conversation was going to, because I was just thinking, he's picking his topics tonight.
Thought it was blood sacrifice.
Yeah, and I think it's coming to a point now, right? I think that that the way war is going, I mean, I would hate to have been living in 1914 in a certain part of the world saying, right, lads, you're off to war and you ain't coming back. I mean, they just basically butchered people. It was cannon fodder stuff. And if you ever watch some of the films, it was just a layer and layer of carnage. The same in the Second World War. And I think what's happening now is that there's different degrees of it now because of the technology involved that they can nearly pinpoint. But I think anybody who's sent to war or sent to a conflict by politicians who some of them have never even had a gun in their hand in anger, I have absolute respect for them.
Well, we have, I suppose, the question was very broad. Blood sacrifice goes back to we read about the Aztecs, for instance, and
goes back further than that.
Who had an appeasement to the gods, that they would bring good luck and fertility.
I think, I don't know whether I mean, the way I looked at when the topic was gone, it was like, I thought it was going to be something like the Japanese samurai war, or
fall on your sword.
And as you just mentioned, the Aztecs, where they do have sacrificial killings and all that.
Yeah, the Japanese people are from some people call it foolish. I wouldn't. I call it heroic things. I mean, they would rather, and they did, take their own life rather than the indignity of defeat in battle or anything like that. Going way back to the samurai, you saw that with that Tom Cruise film. The Last Samurai. Quite a good film. Like, I know it's only a film. We're getting back to our own people in history. I think there should be a lot more history taught in it because people aren't aware of these things. But as I said, from this program on LearnMedia.tv, we're suggesting that you go back to Irish history. You don't have to go back very far. And he's no relation, Kevin Barry, but reading his book, it's a short book. You read it in 40 minutes, one of the books on his life. And the utterances of that young lad of 18 and a half was just astonishing. I think it should be reading for young people anyway, especially whatever old folks.
See, Pat, you have what happened with Thomas McSweeney, the hunger strikers in the north. I think we probably touched it before, that no one ever thought that would have gone that far.
No, I thought myself, as you know, Chris, that when Bobby Sands died,
that would have been it.
I thought that would be a catalyst for just at least call a halt to it. But you had the Tories and we should know the form of the British anyway down through the years, but we again miscalculated the form of the British. They made a Hames in
Well, not the British, Pat, the British government of the time.
Yeah, the British government.
Wouldn't happen nowadays. It wouldn't
And
happen
they
nowadays.
made the Hames in 1916 when they shot all the leaders.
Yeah.
As you said, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't learn from history.
And what they did in India, I mean, what they did in India as well. I mean, they looked at that and saw what happened. I mean, if you look at of all the countries over the last 100 years, right, that have gained independence, okay, and it wasn't just the British government and the British Empire. I mean, the French had a lot to do with the Portuguese,
The Belgians.
the Belgians as well. I mean, some of the stuff in Belgium was just Belgian Congo was just something out of, you know. And you go into
King Leopold and his henchmen from Belgium killed more people than Adolf Hitler did. Now, put that in your pipe and smoke it, and that's not making any apology for the Nazis. But when you think that man, that nation, that country has been ignored almost in history.
And then you get people who turn on their own, like Stalin, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some of the stories you hear about what happened in the 30s, 40s in Russia, are just absolutely mind-boggling when they come out. You know, it's just crazy how people do that.
But you say that, Pat. You say that, but to be honest with you, under say Nazism, there's still bodies being found, still mass graves being found. I mean, if you go to Czechoslovakia, there's a priest from France. I'm trying to think of his name. I'm on LinkedIn with him, but his parents were Czechoslovakian, and he became very, very instrumental in trying to trace the buried mass graves. And there's people still alive who actually were children at the time and saw the bodies, saw the children and the women and the men being herded out into the woods, sat on trees, hid up in the trees and watched as the people were being buried, and were able to bring him to the site, and they were able to dig up at least 10,000 in each grave. So it's going to be incalculable how many people were actually killed under Nazism. They say 11 million, including say Jews, Gentiles, gays, gypsies, or well, if you say Jews and Gentiles, 11 million in total, 6 million of whom were Jews. That's conservative. That is absolutely conservative. How much? Because they're turning up every day.
I want to share your story, okay? Just as you mentioned it. First time I ever went to Germany was 1994. My brother used to work for BMW. He was working for BMW at the time in Munich. And I went on a 2-week holiday, free accommodation, as you do. But the highlight of the trip was to go to see Germany versus Ireland up in Hanover, which was about 3 weeks before the World Cup in America. And the weekend before the match was on, my brother took me to a football tournament, and it was train ride out the countryside, okay? And it actually was, a guy from Donegal was the director of basically a village out in the countryside, maybe about 30, 40 miles outside Munich. And it was basically a village for people with mental and physical disabilities. They had their own factory. They brewed their own beer, which was superb, by the way. They grew their own vegetables. They were self-supporting, right? And we went around, and Ray, I remember the guy's name, never forget the man's name, Ray, from Donegal fella. And he was director of this place, and he took us around, and he was able to pinpoint the people. And there were people that had mental and physical disabilities. And he pointed, he said, see that man over there? Castrated by the Nazis. I said, what do you mean? He says he had mental illness. The Nazi says, we don't want people like him producing castrated, right? That guy over there, that girl over there, they took her ovaries out or whatever, right? She was butchered. You want to see the scars on her? She says butchered. Yeah. And this is 1994. And this was like what, 35 years, maybe after the war, if my maths are right, maybe 40 years after the war. And even then, there was people in Germany living with that depravity. right? And it was actually a sobering visit, because what the man, we raised a bit of money from to whatever, and what it was that there was just an entire kind of community from mental and physically ill people. But the fact was, because of what they were at the time, they were made to suffer worse.
Yeah. You're right, Chris. You're absolutely right. Here is the image of Father Patrick Debois, and he has written the most, or produced the most magnificent documentary, going back to Czechoslovakia and finding the survivors who were children, who witnessed the horrors. And many of these, as Chris said, many were disabled. Blind people and blind Jewish people were not allowed to bring on after the Nuremberg laws in 1937. They were not allowed to carry the white sticks to show that they were blind. So they were doubly disabled, if you like, because they weren't allowed to show that they were disabled. But the amount of human beings that he unearthed in mass graves, they're still going on. They're still finding mass graves. It will never be known the hundreds of millions of people that were killed between Russia, between Germany, between Austria, Switzerland, all over the world. And had the Nazis actually won the war, it's just, it'll never be known. This man is just simply extraordinary. He's a tiny little man. He goes all over the world talking about it, and he is still, his family, his background, as far as I know, was Jewish, but he became a Catholic priest. His family were Catholics, and he is completely driven in finding more bodies, and because he has found out that there's bodies all over in mass graves that have still not been found. So when they say 6 million Jews and 5 million Gentiles, that is just so extremely conservative. The hair would stand on our heads, I'd imagine, if we actually knew the final amount.
We have strayed slightly, but we don't really mind here on You Cannot Be Serious. And I suppose blood sacrifice can take all forms. And of course, the famous, I had a teacher who was passionate about history, thank God. And he used to told me the very first story I had from him in history was the Pass of Thermopylae, the famous 300, you know, who held off. Was it the Turkish army or the Sultan's army in the
armies of Persia?
300 men, it was in that song, A Nation Once Again, 300 men and 3 men, it was got into that song. Yeah. A Nation Once Again, which was written by a fellow Malaman, Thomas Davis. There you are now. You Cannot Be Serious, the program. On learmedia.tv, we go from the sublime and the serious to the ridiculous. Now,
off you go, Paraig.
You Cannot Be Serious with Pat Barry and friends. Wherever you are, we're here.
With Joey and friends, that should be anyway.
Would you not change that to Pat Barry and acquaintances?
Pat Barry and all suffering people.
Pat Barry and people he thinks he knows.
Now, Paraig, do you want to go across the desert on a camel, or do you want to climb a mountain with a few people? If you're given the choice,
well, I've experienced the camel one. Has anyone here experienced being on a camel?
No, it gives me the hump.
Yeah, no, I did. I experienced this on a holiday there a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Interesting experience. I'm not into the old hill walking, but I did try the camel one. A very short answer for you.
And what was it like? Were you up high, obviously?
Yeah, it's fairly high, yeah. It's fairly high.
They're tall animals. They're very tall animals.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah. They're random.
Did you drink coffee on top of it? Because I just wanted to know if you took sugar, was it 1 lump or 2?
Aren't they beautiful little creatures, though?
Yeah, actually.
Haven't they got lovely proud faces when you look at them? They're just so proud looking.
They're apparently bad-tempered. They're apparently very nasty little animals, and they're big animals.
Oh, they're huge animals. They go, is it 14 days without water?
Water, yeah. They can store it in their hump.
Yeah. No.
And if they have 2 humps, they can go longer periods because obviously everything is. It's amazing. They're amazing creatures.
They are, yeah.
And they've been much revered in art down through the centuries, and they're just amazing that they can store so much water for such lengths of time, and go through that arable land without it affecting them.
How the desert, how nature provided the Bedouin people mainly in Sahara Africa with an animal like that. Absolutely fantastic.
Isn't that beautiful? Look at it. Look at the way he's appreciating the kindness that's shown to her.
I could appreciate her too, to be honest with you.
I would, yeah. But so, Paraig, you have the experience of being atop of one of those creatures.
Yeah.
And you enjoyed it?
I did, yeah. We were kind of on a bit of a, I can't think of the word for it now, but there was a group of us, it was a family occasion, like on a holiday. I can't remember where it was now, but anyway, it was a great experience, yeah. Lovely and soft. I was in between the 2 humps.
2 humps, good. Now we'll leave it there. Stephen,
are they comfortable?
No, not very.
Yeah.
Or comfortable.
No, they're not. It depends on the camel, I suppose.
Yeah.
Whether there's 1 hump or 2.
Yeah, would you go for the camel ride or up the mountaineering?
Done the camel bit. No class climbing a mountain at all. I want to fly a stunt plane or do parachuting or hang gliding.
I'd like to jump out of I think I'd like to jump out of a plane.
Well,
I think I'd like to jump out of a plane.
There is a trick you can do, Mary, by parachuting out of a plane without the parachute. It can be done, but you're going to do it.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't actually make my day. No, I think I would actually like to jump out of a parachute, out of a plane with somebody else.
The camel.
You can do that. You can actually do that with what do they call them? Say a skilled parachutist.
Yeah. Because when they're jumping out, you'd want to make sure that they don't have any suicidal tendencies. That's the only thing. But I suspect that if you jump out with somebody else, that they are going to be.
And when you were in Morocco, Mary, was it Morocco you were in, or Algeria? Did you not
I was in Agadir in Morocco, and it was absolutely stunning. I wasn't ever on a camel. I did get my a henna tattoo on my ankle that was beautiful. It came from my toe up to my ankle, but I'd never have a tattoo other than that. I remember going in and ordering. This is just so amazing. I bought the bracelets that I have on me in actually Morocco, and I brought it home. I think I paid about £400 for it at the time, and I brought it home, and it was valued 3 times that in the jewelers because their gold is so. But I went in, I remember, and I went in and I ordered a pair of leather trousers and a leather jacket, and I got the trousers made from the denim cut, the Levi denim cut, and they had the coat. I still have it. It's a full length, slit up the back, leather coat and trousers for about £300, and at the time, and it was made in 24 hours. I went away. I came in.
You didn't see a camel in Morocco that time, did you?
No, but no, I didn't see a camel, and I wanted to go to Marrakesh for the day, but I remember a priest came to us who was staying in the hotel, and he said, I'm going home to Ireland right now. He said, I was supposed to have another week, but he said, what I saw in Marrakesh, I just couldn't stay. He said, it's just the children on the streets. maybe 5 and 6 years of age with no glasses on, and they welding and making things on the street until 10 o'clock at night from 8 o'clock that morning. He said it was just immoral, and he said I couldn't stay, but we stayed, and we did have a good time in Agadir, apart from the cockroaches that were absolutely enormous. Absolutely enormous.
And did you have them? You could have cockroaches, of course, with chocolate and nuts mixed in. They'd be beautiful.
No, but these were just running across the road.
Up with a bit of garlic, Pat.
It's just,
yeah, you could roast them. They're great, full of iron and vitamins.
Full of nutrition.
But the people were lovely.
Would you rather go on a camel or climb a mountain?
Me?
Yeah.
Mountain.
You
I'd never climb a mountain.
Oh no. Well, I mean, climb a mountain. I mean, I take that into context. I think let's be honest about it. Crow Patrick doesn't really, I wouldn't knock anybody for doing it, but for anybody wanting to go up in that place barefooted is a different kind of masochism as far as I'm concerned. To come back with bleeding feet, I mean, okay, fair enough. If you want to do that, that's
it's blood sacrifice that Pat is talking about earlier.
Yeah. Well, it's bringing yourself to account, bringing yourself to book, which is necessary sometimes.
Going up a mountain.
No, walking up Crow Patrick or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice. It's a penance, isn't it?
One of the things I always want to do, and that's one of my bucket lists, is I love to go and see one of the stages in the Tour de France up the mountain. But the thing about it is, it takes about 2 days to get up that high because of the amount of traffic and camper vans to go up there. But we were on holiday last year, and we went to a place called Dornbirn, just in Austria, not far from the German border in the Constance area. And they have these the cattle cars that goes up into the mountain, like observation points. So the lads wanted to go up, and I says, yeah, we'll always go up and have a look, blah, 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 go up and you're going up, and you're kind of looking and says, where is this cable car going to? Because you couldn't see where in the mountain it was going to.
Yeah.
Closer you're going, still no. And then you're about maybe a couple of 100 meters away, you see it, right? And it's like a docking station carved out in the rock, right? So you're up there, right? And you're looking down and you're going, right, now my legs are wobbly, now I have a bit of a problem. So they have like a place where you can go for a viewing stand where you can take photographs over the city. And my son went because there was a couple of the place there where they had some kind of gymnastic tournament on, and Ireland were involved in it, and half the world were involved, so they were the hosts, and there were loads of teams up there, kids and all that, and my young lad wanted to go over, and I basically just, come away, Connor, Jesus, just come away. And he says, but I want to get my photograph taken. I says, not by me. My legs were literally shaking because you're looking, and it was like overhanging the glass. You can actually stand on the glass and overhanging, and I just couldn't take it. And I said, come away. And he was a bit upset afterwards. I mean, I like going up that high, but I have a problem when you look and you say, right, I didn't bargain. I didn't take this into consideration.
Well, I don't know if you were ever in Cologne Cathedral.
I was.
I'm sure you were. I climbed that when I went with Bunratty Castle. Yeah. I climbed it, and we all did. And I was 4 steps from the top.
Yeah.
And it had changed from concrete to spiral.
Yeah.
And I was 4 steps from the top, and I made the mistake of looking down. And as you know, Chris, the windows started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought I was coming out the window, and I was literally holding on to the steel bed. I couldn't move. I was afraid to breathe. I've never experienced fear like it. I couldn't go up. I couldn't come down. It took 4 people to actually come up and try and help me downstairs. And when I got to the ground, I can still remember lying on the ground because I couldn't feel my legs underneath me. So I can understand how you felt in that.
But in the dome in Cologne,
was awful.
They wouldn't let us up because my wife was pregnant, and they wouldn't let pregnant women go up.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Oh, Pat, you've never seen anything like it.
Which is probably a good thing, in fairness.
Yeah.
But we did go to Andorra in the Pyrenees one year, and that was again, you're talking about tight roads, not as tight as the Connor Pass in near Dingle, but tight roads. And windy roads, and you know, if you, I mean, I don't know how the cyclists do it, because it's just they must get you know, sick all the time from the stomachs from going high up and down or whatever.
We know how some cyclists do it, all right, Chris.
Oh yes, we do. Yes, not well. There was a story years ago, right? I'll tell you this one. Okay, you mentioned that. I remember because I did it. I did a thesis about 25 years ago for when I was doing a journalism course in Dublin, and I did it on the Tour de France. And I remember going, and there was Jack Anquetil who won 5 tours in the late 50s, early 60s. And this is when all the drug thing started. And he turned around and he says, Monsieur Anquetil, how do you manage to go up these mountains? You're so good, you're so good. And he says, what are you taking? He says, well, let's put it this way. He says, I ain't taking feckin' water alone, you know.
There you go. And before we finish, I think we all opt for the. I love the Camel because the opening scene of Saudi Arabia, when you see that little black speck away in the horizon as it comes towards you, that did it for me. But I'll do it someday.
Well, like the Lawrence of Arabia, that one.
Paraig?
You cannot be serious with Pat Barry and friends. Wherever you are, we're here.
And tell
like the Muppets, isn't it? And friends. Mana boo boo be doobie. Mana boo boo be doo. Mana.
We need everybody's acquaintances and friends to do is to subscribe to the channel. It's free. Subscribe to bring those numbers up. That's all. And we have some exciting news over the next couple of weeks with training days and all that for all the people involved coming up. It's in the embryonic stage of planning. Is that right, Mary?
Yeah, and she's such a lovely person. She rang us yesterday. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. She's she really knows her thing.
Signed. But to be here in Limerick anyway, the training day, full day. Anyway, from Chris Price, from Stephen Collins, from Paraig Londra, and from Mary Honan and myself, till we meet again, from You Cannot Be Serious and myself, good night and good luck.
You Cannot Be Serious. Presented by Pat Barry and panel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Good night.
Wherever you are, we're here.
Bye.